if you gave me a choice, would I want an Ivor Novello Award or to play with the Kenny Wheeler Quartet? I would pick to play with the Kenny Wheeler Quartet. And I did. Kenny was at one juncture, Kenny was my biggest influence. Kenny Wheeler was, in terms of playing, improvising and composing, at one juncture, in one of my many phases, but a significant one, Kenny was, for all intents and purposes, my hero. He was an incredible man. I had a friend, Mike. Mike, I played with Mike several times. Very congenial guy. Affable, lovely fellow. From the north of England. And Mike was one of the most influential musicians in the north of England, from Blackpool right across to Newcastle, in terms of rock, jazz, folk, pop, and even classical. He knew everybody. And I asked Mike, I said, Mike, perchance, would you have a contact for Kenny Wheeler? And Mike knew everyone. I'm not sure if he actually played with Kenny, but he got me Kenny's address. So I sent Kenny Wheeler a letter, handwritten letter, and a tape of my playing. And asked him, I said, Kenny, would you be interested in playing sometime? Maybe if you had a gig or, whatever, maybe we could do something. And to my absolute astonishment, a letter arrived from London saying, this is Kenny Wheeler. Listen to your tape. I think your playing is very good. I'd like to play with you. And so then, that's when it started. So basically, we arranged dates. He said, look, I'm very, very busy, but I've got these dates. What do you think? So I said, okay, let's go. So I managed to get a date on one of those, that he was available, one of the dates. I managed to hook up bass player and drummer, English guys. And basically he said, the proviso was all my music. No problem, Kenny, we'll do all your music. And it's the Kenny Wheeler Quartet, which I was like, kind of absolutely amazing. So we were playing his music, and it was going to be the Kenny Wheeler Quartet. Okay, next. The Liz, who was helping me out, really nice girl, and I used to teach her nephew, great guy. And basically, we managed to get Dr. Harold Fish, a really nice guy, to support the flights, and he did. So the British Council were going to pay for the flights. Hooray, that was amazing. And I managed to get some support for accommodation, brilliant. And Triskel were putting on the concert. They were hosting it and they were going to promote the whole thing. Everything was going really, really good. And basically the way it works is that we arrange the songs, and I basically had to transcribe the songs myself, learn them myself, learn the melodies myself, because the dots would be arriving on the day of the gig. Kenny would bring the music, put it on your stand, gig was done, take the music back off your stand. That was it. So I got all that arranged. Then, one of the most successful theatre productions in the history of Cork was Disco Pigs, starring Cillian Murphy. Someone in Triskel forgot about our concert and block booked Disco Pigs, and forgot to mention that we were going to be playing. So luckily Liz had a word with Enda Walsh, and Enda Walsh actually said, that's okay, we'll have that night as a rest night, and enjoy the gig. And to the astonishment, they called people up who had booked tickets for Disco Pigs and told them that there'll be a jazz concert on that night instead. And they said, and who's playing? And they said Kenny Wheeler, and they said, we'll go to that. So for the concert, we had a full house. And not only that, people standing at the back, like really just jammed, full, absolutely full. It was an incredible concert. Again, all of Kenny's tunes except one, "A Flower Is a Lonesome Thing," which we kind of opened out kind of thing. But everything else was basically Kenny, and mainly from Dear One and Widow in the Window, kind of those albums, mainly from that. But the very last song we played, I mean, it was a really nice thing. Even the rehearsals were fantastic, and Andy and Steve were amazing. But the very last song we played was this. It was for the encore. It was a kind of an ascending pentatonic pattern. Right on the last note, the audience screamed euphorically. It was unbelievable. I'd never really come across it before, but they were just on their on their feet, clapping, screaming, everything. It was quite amazing. And Kenny wrote to me maybe a week or so after the concert, and he said, "Mark," he said, "that was the greatest concert I've played for a long time. I've never had so much fun. It was really, really good." And when I did the White Album, I sent Kenny a copy of it, and he said, "It's a really, really good album, Mark." And so it was an amazing experience to have actually played with him, and not only that, but in his quartet, playing his music. Very, very. He was, as I said, one of the most influential musicians for me at a certain juncture, and the influence is there, residual. Thank you very much for listening.